All right, so, excuse me, what we are looking at here is our refresher of our 2D and 3D shapes. So remember, a 2D, right, is flat, whereas a 3D is three-dimensional. So 3D is basically everything you see in your everyday life, okay? Anything that you see in this room is 3D. It may not appear 3D, but it's 3D. Whereas 2D is typically those printed items, okay? So, what do you know about a triangle? And by a triangle, let me rephrase. What do you know about a rectangle? What do you know about its corners? They're all right angles. All of the vertices are right angles, okay? And a vertice is basically a corner, okay? It's also called a parallelogram. It's also a parallelogram, okay? The other thing is that opposite sides are congruent. Opposite sides are congruent. Okay? So, the related terms would basically be things like a square. A square is a special rectangle. It's special. Okay? And again, we're going to put parallelogram here. Okay? So that's all they're looking for on these. So let's continue on. The next one is called a parallelogram. So again, still has 4 vertices, and the opposite sides are still congruent. Here's where it differs, though. It's not right angles, it's opposite angles are also congruent. So what I mean by that is if you're looking across, right, diagonally, those two are congruent and these two are congruent, okay? And then the last thing is just like rectangles, which we didn't put in there, but you know, parallel sides. And you should remember that parallel means they never will intersect. So these two will never intersect, and these two will never intersect. Okay? And then down in the related terms, we're going to put a rhombus, because a rhombus is kind of like a special parallelogram. Okay, a rhombus is a special parallelogram. Okay. Now, looking at trapezoid. A trapezoid is called a quadrilateral. Quadrilateral. Okay? And that just means that it has 4 sides. It's an enclosed figure with 4 sides. So these are also parallelogram or are also quadrilaterals, but the best way to describe them, if you're going that route, is a parallelogram because opposite sides are parallel. Okay? So, I guess I can put opposite right here. Yeah, that, okay. So, it's quadrilateral, has 4 sides, and there is one pair of parallel sides. One pair of parallel sides. Any idea which sides are the parallel sides? Good. This one and this one. These two are the parallel sides. Okay? And those are called the bases. So they actually have two bases. I know, crazy. What? All right. And then for related terms, we're just going to put quadrilateral. Okay? So I know this is a lot of writing. I get it. But it's not that bad. Okay? So now we are looking at the next one, which is a circle. So if you know anything about circles, they have a center. If you go all the way across through that center, that is called the diameter. So the related terms is what we're going to do first. So we have a center, we have a diameter, we have a radius, right? So on our welcome work, we talked about diameter, and some people even mentioned a radius, okay? And then the last thing, which is what you worked on last year, is circumference. Circumference. And circumference, remember, is the distance around the circle. Okay? The distance around the circle. So now that you kind of remember that, what we're going to look at is all points are equidistant. All points are equidistant from the center. Okay? All points are equidistant from the center. Okay? So the last one is a triangle. So it is a three-sided polygon. And polygon is just a fancy word for saying that it's a figure that's an enclosed shape, has vertices and sides. Okay? So it's a three-sided polygon, and it's special because all angles have a sum to 180 degrees. Okay? And then the two ways that you can look at a triangle is either by its sides or by its angles. So the options are isosceles, which means two sides are congruent, scaling, no sides are congruent, or equilateral, which means all sides are congruent. Okay? Angles are acute, obtuse, or right. Okay? If you want to get fancy, there's also a fourth one called equiangular, but that's okay. All right? We are good on the 2D shapes. So now we are looking at 3D shapes. So the first one is a rectangular prism. So when we were looking at these, we did this last year. Faces, edges, and vertices. So the faces are like almost the sides, right? Like if I were to turn it around, how many sides are there? So in this one, right, I have my front, my back, my right, my left, my top, and my bottom.